don't speak French or are English
Yes.
native.
That would be
So
true.
we will do the
Only one.
only one.
We should advertise it.
Maybe the people
2.5.
online, there are some that don't
Online it's.
understand well French.
So perhaps just a word of context from my side. Well, we know each other for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moyen,
Oh, yeah.
come in. So Professor Filzer, he's professor at the University of Bruxelles, University of Brussels, and he's specialized in everything about companies, R&D, innovation, digitalization, etc. All those kind of things. Yeah.
And also the evaluation.
Yeah. But you can deepen. So
Yeah.
he was at the Journée de l'économie, which we had in March.
No.
In March, and he was one of the keynote speakers. And then I told him that we should have a meeting among us just to see a little bit what he's doing, what he can do together with the University of Brussels, and because he knows Luxembourg quite well, and he comes very often here,
Yes.
and so it makes things quite easy. Okay.
I grew up in Luxembourg.
Yeah.
Until 18.
Yeah.
But
So he understands even Luxembourgish.
Oh,
you.
Okay, so perhaps just everybody can introduce himself quickly. So we have a team here of static research, which is a special department and a special organization inside of static. Perhaps Chiara, you start because you're the boss, so you have a general overview, and then everyone can introduce himself quite quickly.
Chiara Ferroni, and I'm the head of the research department in STEC, as Serge has said.
Okay. So, well,
like this, please. Okay, my name is Francesco Sarracino. I'm an economist at Static Research. I'm in charge of the research unit on well-being and entrepreneurial studies.
I'm Shisha, and also a researcher at the Static Research, especially that researcher at the productivity divisions of the research. So my specialty is on the firm level data, productions analysis, and also the GDC, so global value chains. Thank you.
I'm Giovanni Manzarotti, colleagues at Static Research, mostly they are productivity.
I'm Lorenzo Palladini. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Luxembourg, at the Department of Economics and Management. And yeah, I also work on innovation, R&D at the firm level, sometimes though, not always.
Who is your PhD supervisor?
Catherine.
I know.
And she told me to say hi to you.
Yeah.
I'm working for static research, and I'm working also on productivity, but at industry level and sometimes at level.
My name is Vasya Sivets. I'm also part of the productivity team of Static Research, and I mostly work with macroeconomic data on business cycle and partly also nowcasting and forecasting.
Nowcast.
Yeah.
I'm Evgeny Monastrenko. I work as the consultant at the Conjuncture and Prévision department here in Statec. And before I was a postdoc researcher at the University of Luxembourg. I have some 1.5 papers, let's say, on efficiency of firms. I work a lot with the firm level data.
Okay. And may I ask you a question, because I have heard that many of you work with micro data, and these company level data are Luxembourgish companies, or it can be a company from everywhere in Europe, outside the EU. Luxembourg. Okay.
Exclusively Luxembourg.
Because probably you have access to all these surveys at the firm level. We can use the data
It's data from static.
from static, yeah. And do you match your data with other data sources? Like, I don't know, patents or whatever?
No.
No? Generally, you don't do that.
But we use other surveys which are done
Yeah,
in-house, no? R&D innovation.
Yeah, we use
CIS.
levels survey conducted by Statec, so essentially it's SBS, CIS.
CIS.
Sometimes ICP, we also have entrepreneurship data that we collect at
So
individual.
the idea is to use the data which is available.
Also material.
So since we have to catch up a lot of research which has not been done for years here, but probably comes a day where we want to extend to other countries, having other sources.
But when we, well, already 25 years ago, I used to work at the Belgian Federal Science Policy Office, and they were in charge of organizing the CIS survey for Belgium. Well, you know, Belgium is complicated because also the regions were, and I used to work there 2 years, the R&D survey and the CIS. And so I did some economic studies using this information. Yeah, thank you. So I'm very happy to know you, to be here. Thank you very much, Serge, for the kind invitation. As Serge told you, I was already here in March for the Journée de l'économie. And there I made a presentation about the relationship between innovation, broadly defined, research, development, innovation, and competitiveness. Okay, and see the position of the Grand Duchy in terms of innovation, competitiveness, the factors supporting this competitiveness, maybe also the bottlenecks. And so I thought it's interesting to continue on this topic. And today I would like to present you a work we have done with my former PhD students, Ela Ince and Anabela Santos. This time the relationship is again between innovation and competition. So the idea that we would like to investigate is to what extent competition is good for innovation activities of companies, or maybe it can have a negative effect. Okay, that's the topic of today. Well, I can already tell you that it is interesting to do this kind of analysis because from the theoretical point of view, but also you will see, I will show you from the empirical point of view, there are different conclusions. There are some authors, like Schumpeter, they find, well, according to them, the relationship is negative. When there is too much competition, firms are less inclined to innovate. But other authors, they find a positive relationship. And other authors, they find a nonlinear relationship, a U-shape, or inverse U-shape. Okay? So why is it so? But before we move on these questions, well, this is the agenda for today. I will also, you see, point 6. This is something a little bit different. I added it yesterday. I would also share with you some thoughts after a large study we did for the European Commission, DG RTD, about the state aid rules for R&D for innovation. And I can already tell you that is disadvantaged because of the rules. They are very strict, they are very complex, there are too many rules. And so in the study, you will see, we did a comparison between the 28, at the time UK was still in the EU, we examined all the state aids, more than 2,000 programs, policies, instruments in all the 28 state member states, and we compared with 9 major EU competitors of the EU: Brazil, US, Canada, Russia, China, Japan, South Korea, India, and Australia. But it's interesting. We'll come to that later. Maybe because we did this small tour de table, I think the idea also is to know each other better, and maybe I would be very happy if we could start some collaborations, studies, economic studies. So as Serge already said, my field of expertise, my experience, I did my PhD on that, the relationship between R&D activities, productivity, and also R&D technological spillovers. Because when companies do innovate, the outcomes of these activities can benefit to other companies, spillovers. Okay, how to measure this? So yeah, I've done a lot. I have been working always at the micro level with firm data. I also use a lot of patents, scientific publications. And so, as I said more recently, I do a lot, well, it's hard to say consulting. I work a lot with the European Commission, different DGs, and basically I quantitatively assess the impact, the socio-economic impact of different policies, mostly again in the field of innovation, R&D, and so on. For instance, now I have been appointed as, well, we are 3 persons, academic experts, to follow a big study which is going on to assess the ex-post impact of the regional funds, the structural funds over the period 2014-2020. It's 2 years, now it's almost done, this study. I have also some experience with macroeconometric models like Remolo, FTG, so on. And more recently, because we had this COVID pandemic, I thought it was interesting to work on this topic. And so with some co-authors, we had the chance to have access to surveys from consumers everywhere, a little bit everywhere in the world. And so we investigated different questions. For instance, the intentions of people to get vaccinated, because you know some people they were scared, they didn't want to be vaccinated. Maybe now it has changed, but at that time it was an important question for the policymakers. How to increase the number of people who are willing to be vaccinated, and other questions like that. And for that, well, now it's 5 years, I have been specializing myself, because from the beginning I'm an econometrician, I have a master in econometrics. But now, since 4 or 5 years, I have learned by myself AI tools. And it's very interesting and powerful, and it complements what you can do with econometrics, I must say. And it's not difficult to implement these tools. It's interesting. So,
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
It's quite easy.
But I just
That was a joke. I don't know.
no, a joke about ChatGPT. Last Friday, we had a master thesis defense, and the students, he did his master thesis with ChatGPT, and it was written in English, Oxford English, and the guy came and he couldn't speak. And after that, after a while, we told him, look, you have done your master thesis with ChatGPT. And his answer was, he had to admit that. And so nowadays, it's challenging for us, the teachers, the professors, because you need to assess your students differently, because they use ChatGPT. And it's not, it's good, because it helps them to do better things and faster. But of course, they need to understand what they are doing. Okay, thank you. Yeah, maybe to finish on this, collaborations, how can we collaborate together? There are different ways, as I already said several times to Serge and other colleagues. At my universities, there are several students who come from Luxembourg. And they are, of course, very interested to do studies that concerns the Luxembourgish economy. Okay? And so I propose, and also Ferdi Adam, you know him, he also sends me sometimes topics for master thesis. So if you have in mind some topics, because we have every year like 600 students that do their master thesis. And out of these 600, some are from Luxembourg. So this is a good way. Another idea is there are seminars, and there are students from Luxembourg. For instance, I have to send this to you, sir. One of my seminar, I asked the students to do an analysis of the national innovation system of two countries, one in the EU and one outside. And this year we had a team who analyzed the national innovation system of Luxembourg. And it was a decent work. So with the students, we have a lot of workforce. It's free. And we just need to supervise them, give them advices. So this is one way to collaborate. Another way, we can start some studies together. And as Serge said, well, not every day, but often I'm here physically. My parents, they live here nearby. So I can come here in the office and, well, before you move to that's and I don't know if you need a consultant, an expert. There are different ways for us to collaborate, and you would be happy, as I told you,
And European projects too.
yes, on European.
There is a collaboration.
OECD, I heard.
Requested.
Yeah, because I have quite a lot of experience on European project. But okay, so now let's come back to the topic of today, relationship between competition and innovation. As I told you, from a theoretical point of view, all views are expressed, as you can see. For Schumpeter, the relationship is negative. So the more there is competition, the less firms will engage in R&D innovation. Why? Because if there are too many firms, if there is too much competition, then the returns to your R&D activities decrease because there are too many firms. So you have to share the cake between many firms. Another reason is that because as we know, market failures, imperfections, like for instance, you do R&D, but you don't know what you will find. It's a risky activity. There are sunk costs, and you need a certain mass critique of R&D to be successful. And so this means that only the firms that are big, that have a certain level of market power, rents, they have enough money to afford doing this kind of activities, R&D expenses, investment. Arrow is another economist, you know, for him, from a theoretical point of view, the relationship is positive. Why? Because R&D, basically, there are two types of R&D activities. Product-oriented R&D, you discover new products, a new phone, a new laptop, but there is also a process-oriented R&D. There, the idea is that you innovate in new processes to make your goods or deliver your services, and the costs decrease because the machines are better, are more advanced. And so Arrow, he says firms are incentivized to engage in R&D, to do a process R&D, and then the outcome is that they can decrease their costs of manufacturing or in services, and they have an advantage over their competitors. Bone, he finds U types of relationship. U, it means when there is a low level of competition, firms do more R&D. And also when the competition is very high, firms do more R&D. And in the middle. And so his argument is that it depends, in fact, on the cost history of the industries and also the initial value of competition. Finally, the most recent authors, and Philippe Aguillon and his co-authors, they find inverse U type of relationship. They put forward two effects, two mechanisms. One is called escaped competition effect. Is the case of, for instance, Apple and Samsung. There is a typo in Samsung, sorry. So these two companies, they are very advanced from a technological point of view. They are close to the technological frontier, and they compete on each other with their products, iPhones. And so if one company increases its R&D, the other will do also, because they want to stay in the technological race. And they know that they will be successful. If they do more R&D, they can keep the race and continue competing with their rivals. And so this is the positive part of the relationship. When there is more competition, there will be more R&D for these types of companies that are close to the technological frontier. But at the same time, there are what Aguillon and his colleagues called laggard firms. And what does it mean? It means firms that are far away this technological frontier. And here we have examples of companies like Nokia, Kodak, BlackBerry. Well, at some point they made mistakes in their technological strategic plans management. They invested in wrong technologies and they lose the race. And so now they are laggard. They are not in the race. And so for these types of firms, the relationship is negative. If there is more competition, the firms knows that it will not be successful because it lacks technological capacity. And so, because the chances are low to be successful, if there is more competition, these kind of firms will tend to invest less because they know the money will be lost. Basically, all the chances are high that they will lose their money. Well, I don't know if you can see this table is small, but it's a review of empirical studies that have investigated this relationship between R&D and competition. And so here also you see some studies find a positive relationship, other a negative one, and some studies, half of them, they find a non-linear relationship, either U-shaped or inverse U-shaped. One feature here is that all these studies, they use a sample of companies, domestic companies. While we know that the competition, like I said before, the example of Apple and Samsung, it's worldwide. So this, according to us, it's a limitation of these studies. While our study, we use a representative sample of the top worldwide R&D spenders. Our sample is representative of more than 90% of all the private R&D in the world, the business enterprise R&D at the aggregated level.
May I ask you?
Yeah, please. I forgot to say, if you want to interrupt me, feel free.
That's a very brief question. So as far as I see here, there are no recent papers on this literature, like 5 years. Maybe I don't see some of
The
them.
papers are quite old.
Yeah. Is there any specific reason for that? Is like problems with data access or everything studied, or they simply believe in our hypothesis and they don't go further?
One is that this paper was originated already maybe 4 or 5 years ago, because as I told you at the beginning, it was one of my or two of my students who started their PhD. So there might be more recent studies on this. I must admit I haven't checked. But at the same time, it has been already quite explored. So maybe there is room for new studies, although this is what we do here. Yeah, that's a question that needs to be checked if there are more recent studies. As I said, the data, so you all know probably the Industrial R&D Investment Scoreboard. It's prepared every year by the European Commission, the Joint Research Center in Seville. And me, 10, 12 years ago, I have been there for 2 years. I worked as a senior scientist, and I worked with this data. So I know them quite well. And so, as I said, it's representative of almost 90% of the world R&D spending. And so you see this also comes back to your question. We have a sample that goes until 2060. Well, you know, probably you have data until 2021, or even 2023 now, the last edition. And if you are interested in this data, I put the link. I will send you, I already sent you my slides. They are freely available. And I know because I checked once, they are even, well, there are some Luxembourg companies in this scoreboard. Yeah. So, since we are interested in the relationship between R&D and the level of competition, we need to measure the level of competition. And here we used 2 types of measures, the Lerner Index, which is the difference, as you can see in the formula, between the price and the final cost of the company divided by the price. So we have the operating profits divided by the sales, minus this. And we have also a weight to reflect the size of the company and its R&D activity. We also use the Lerner Index, very simple. It's the sum of the market shares of all the companies in a market. So if a company has a monopoly, enjoy a monopoly, then his or her market share is 100%. And so then the index, the competition, as you know, each company is very small, has a very small market share, close to 0. And if you do the sum of our small market shares, close to 0, the index will take a value close to 0. And it means that there is a lot of competition. Another contribution of our study, because this was also criticism of the former studies is how can we define the relevant market? This is an important concept in industrial organization and in competition. The relevant market is the market where the competition occurs. Yeah. You know, I don't have to say, you know, sorry, I always explain this to my students, and there are basically two features that needs to be checked to define the relevant market. First one is the geographical dimension, because if we take the example of a restaurant here, we went last time in this Spanish restaurant, the name. It's yeah, there is a Spanish restaurant. Very good one. But the competition between this restaurant and another restaurant in Brussels, for instance, there is no competition because the two restaurants are on different geographical markets. If we take another restaurant here close on the avenue, then there might be more competition between the two. So this is the geographical dimension, and the second criteria is the extent to which the products are substitutes or not. Because if the products or the services are close, are substitute, the level of substitution is high, then they are in competition. If, like I said before, iPhone, if the prices of iPhones decrease, then Samsung has to react because the product are substitute. You see?
Sorry if I interrupted for a second. No, the geographical market for Luxembourg, indeed, you know, the relevance is quite relevant because in our case, the relevant market, because there are firms that compete on international, EU, global, and some that need a lot more local. Yeah, indeed, you know, for small open economy like Luxembourg, that's very relevant. So we devote some attention to that, consider the geographical dimension of the market. This is why.
But you are right. You have the market in Luxembourg, the relevant market. But again, it depends a lot on which sectors.
Indeed, yes, no.
So you have to look at the two together. So here, what we did, we carefully examined each company in our sample, and we decided whether she or it operates at the worldwide level. For instance, there are some banks, they are only present in one country or one region. So we excluded this kind of companies from the sample. In order to have a sample, indeed, we have companies that compete at the worldwide level. The same for some sectors, in particular services. There is no trade at the world level, and so we excluded the companies from this sector. So this is also something we did that has never been done before. So we hope we can better measure this relationship between R&D and competition. Please.
Oh, go ahead.
My question is about the relevance definition of the relevant market. So are those markets that you defined are for the whole world? If not, you don't define that relevant market of the banks in Asia, for example. No,
yeah.
We don't do that.
We excluded.
Okay. So the Lerner Index is at the firm level you calculate.
Yes.
And then you aggregate them at the sector level.
No, we use firm level data, and but just we do the analysis based on the sample for the companies that are competing at worldwide level.
So I'm saying that's because we produce one number for the competition level of this relevant market. So
No, the Lerner indexes are company level.
In here in the table,
you exclude financial services and equity investment instruments because you found them not to compete worldwide.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is my question. My question was related to Vazis. You have these broad aggregation sectors, and within those sectors, some companies might be actually acting internationally and others not.
That's true.
So how are you judging?
I will come to that in 1 minute. Because indeed, here, the table, the sectors are quite highly aggregated. But we did also, and this is maybe another contribution of our analysis, we consider the different level of aggregations of the sectors. We go from ICB 3 digits to NACE 4 digits. 4 digits, it's already quite disaggregated. I don't remember how many sectors you have at that level of disaggregation, but it might be more than 100. So we did that. And we did the analysis when we did the robustness checks. We applied the analysis at all these different levels if what we find is robust. So, okay, so here another concept. This is another study 10 years ago, but it has been updated. Why I show you this slide? Because this is a problem in Europe and maybe also in Luxembourg. So here, if we look at all these R&D top spenders in the world, there are some companies that are younger than others. And Nokia is older than Samsung. And so what we did, we called this young, the YOL stands for young leading innovators. So these are relatively young companies that in small periods managed to become a worldwide top player in R&D. Like, for instance, Google Alphabet. Alphabet was created 25 years ago. You will tell me, but this is not a young company if it was created 25 years ago. But if you compare this kind of companies with, I don't know, Sony in Japan, or other companies that were created 100 years ago, or even more. So it's young, old, relatively, because it concerns the big players in terms of R&D. And so if you are startups, an entrepreneur, you will not become a top R&D spenders in a few years, please.
And these firms might be young because the technology itself is kind of new
And correlated.
and could be reversed as well because they found a place because there is a technology and they were first to innovate because
And so they are.
technology did not really exist and now it's in progress.
You're right, that's correlated, absolutely. Like now AI, all these companies, OpenAI, years, 4 years. But here the point I wanted to make and share with you is the difference between these kind of companies, YOLIs, between the EU and the US. So it's the blue bars, you see, in the EU it's 20%. We have 20% of these YOLIs, young leading innovators. While in the US, it's half of the companies. So here in our criteria is after 1990. If a company was created after 1990, we define it as a young company. We try different thresholds, but the results are. And so the problem in Europe, I don't know in Luxembourg, is that we don't have enough young leading innovators. And we don't see this in these slides, but another problem is that if you look at the R&D intensity of these companies, in Europe, on average, it's much lower than the US yearlies. So not only we don't have, well, we have less yearlies, and on top of that, their level of R&D effort is lower. So two problems. I show you this because we also, you'll see in the results, compare these two types of companies to see if the relationship between R&D and competition is different. Okay, so the empirical framework is very simple. So we have, so it's at the firm level, the log of R&D dependent variable, and then we have employment, the log, the logarithm, to control for the size, the increase in sales over the current year and the year 1 year before, because of course, it's the sector of the company increases, the company normally will also increase its R&D, because if the company sells more, it has more money to invest in R&D, and also the demand in the sector of the company increases. So there is room to innovate, to find a new and better product. And then we have these measures. I show you Lerner Index, Erfindal, competition. And so we have the measure in level and the square of this measure. Because when you do that, as the other studies have done, depending on the signs of these coefficients, beta 3 and beta 4, if it is positive or negative, or the two are positive or the two are negative, you can determine the shape of the relationship. If it is indeed U-shaped or inverse U-shaped, or if, for instance, beta 4 is not significant statistically, and if beta 3 is positive, then you have a positive relation. And if beta 3 is negative, you have a negative. So this is yeah, sorry.
Sorry, why do you assume a contemporaneous effect between competitiveness and innovation?
Yeah, that's a good point, because it could take some time before competition has an effect on the level of R&D. Here we don't see it because it's the basic R&D equation, but what we have done, because we used to check for linearity, multicollinearity. We tried, no, it's not collinearity, sorry, it's causal effect. That's your question, in fact. Does current competition causes current level of R&D? And so to check for this issue, when we do the econometric estimations, we use instruments, and the instruments are past values of these variables, explanatory variables. In T-1, T-2, in fact, we implemented GNM in difference, in level, in whatever, system GNM, you know these techniques. And so normally these techniques are there to control for this kind of causal or simultaneity bias, in fact, simultaneous bias. Is it X that causes Y, or is it the opposite? So we have done all these tests, and the results are confirmed. I'm not going to show you the results of the productivity estimates, but here it is standard to use an extended or augmented Cobb-Douglas production function. So besides the traditional inputs, you add the stock of R&D in the case.
It's just from the I that you have indexed here is that firm level.
Yes.
So the regressions run at firm level. So at firm level, what is the meaning of the competition? Is the competition firms face
Yes
in his relevant market?
Exactly.
So
Because remember, if we use, for instance, the Erfindal, it's the sum of the market shares of the companies in the same market. And it's weighted. And so if the company has a big market share, then the index for that company will be lower. That's the way we do. Okay, please. Go ahead.
No, so do you have an idea when the firms are making their decisions about how much to spend or invest in R&D? So it's like, is it the year before we are planning, as a firm, we're planning the year after, or is it more tight in terms of?
No, it takes time because I would say typically, because I forgot to tell you, I'm also a member of the jury of the Pôle de Compétitivité in Wallonia. It's the main industrial instrument of the Walloon region to support R&D collaborative projects in Wallonia. And so being a member of the jury, we are 15 like that, I read all the projects of the companies they apply to get public subsidies, funds for the R&D collaborative project. And when you read, now it's 5 years already I do that, it's very interesting because you see, of course, it's confidential information, but we have, us, the experts, access to the files of the companies that apply for this kind of funding. And so I can tell you, on average, the project takes between 3 and 4 years. But now, as we said before, since R&D has the properties, has a sunk cost, it's not divisible. So the company will start the R&D project if she knows that she will have enough money to be successful in the project, in the R&D project. And so the company has to decide at the beginning of the project if she has enough money to afford completing successfully R&D project. So I would say they have to decide 3-4 years in advance what will be the budget. Depends on the length of the project. For instance, in the sample, well, I think we can see it here. So you have some descriptive statistics. If you see at the bottom, we took, I said 1990, but it's 1999. But we tried different results to define this years versus the years. But you see in our sample, we have 15% of these worldwide top R&D companies that are created after 2000. Yeah, the R&D expenditures in million euro. If you the last column you see, it's it's almost 14 billion. So it means there is a company in the sample who spends yearly 14 billion, not million, on R&D. That's a lot of money. And you know the name of this company? Amazon. Volkswagen. Okay. But Amazon is in the top 5. Now, you know this ChatGPT, OpenAI, Microsoft, another for the sample. They give to OpenAI how much? 10 billion. Continue to. And again, I said before, in Europe, the problem is that we don't have enough of these units. But I haven't, I should have shown you the figures by sector. And what is very telling, surprising, is that look at the ICT sector, or even the biotechnologies, in Europe, we don't have many companies, especially in ICT. So it means Europe lost this technological revolution. It was in the year 2000, the ICT, the internet. And so we don't have Facebook, Amazon, Google, all these companies.
And they are all located in very one region, right? In California.
Yeah, in the Silicon.
And they might also have the dominating position on the US market.
But they dominate the market worldwide.
I mean
maybe not because you have this Chinese, I don't remember the name, Temu or what? Another one, or TikTok. I'm not using this social networks, my sons.
Communications.
Yeah, you are the.
Also started.
Sorry?
What's the name?
Oh,
This
what's
social-
using?
TikTok.
Yes, yes,
TikTok, I'm not using this. And no, but this was my point. AI, it's now a big change, revolution. And again, the European companies are, well, because I remember at the Journée de l'économie, I had a discussion with the CEO of Arbet, ArcelorMittal. And we were discussing this, the European, they missed again the tournant, the artificial intelligence. And he was saying, oh, but that's not too much a problem because if we can use it, we don't need to develop it. But it creates a dependency that in case of, as we have seen, essentially, it can be dangerous. It is called strategic technological autonomy. It's like, for instance, the chips in the cars or in the PC. If all the manufacturers are located in China, when there are this kind of logistical disruptions, you depend, and we have seen that. So now they are trying to develop, I think it is in Germany, in Saxony, big, large manufacturers or companies, so that us, European, we can also produce our own chips and do that. It's the same with the batteries, the electrical batteries in China. So we need to innovate.
One big advantage.
Cheaper.
No. Regulate. You regulate.
You can regulate.
Europe is the biggest market. So if you want to sell here, you have to comply with a lot of rules, which has been done recently. So we have a law on AI. So you must comply.
The AI
aspects. Yeah, exactly. That's where Europe is strong because we can just protect. It's kind of protection.
Yes, but if the suppliers decide not to export, okay, they lose money because we are a big market indeed. But then what do you do if you don't have any more chips for your devices and cars? So, but I will see, I don't know how much time I still have.
I just wanted to ask you a quick question.
Oh, yeah, please.
On the previous slides,
Yeah.
If I am really, but I mean, it's not so much of the econometric analysis, but I see a direct effect of competition on R&D.
Yeah, here in this equation, it's.
And also, I mean, impact of competition on productivity, right? For certain equation. So,
Yeah.
So, but one could somehow think that there is an impact of R&D stocks. So an impact of competition could be both direct in the second equation and indirect through
Productivity.
exactly. So these two things. I was wondering to what extent you are capital to, let's say,
This is a little of equations where you put both together.
Yes.
That's what you mean.
if it's, I mean, I don't really want to go into technical details, but
Look at the results, because we have statistics and the equation.
Yeah, I will move faster. But as I said before, we large all these variables, T-1, T-2, and also.
for competition as well. And yes, maybe the other one.
Yeah. System. Yeah, so let's go to the results. When the results are presented here. So basically what is interesting is the two first estimated coefficients. And you see the first one is positive and the second one is negative. And so what does it mean? It means that we have an inverse U relationship between competition and R&D. So this is the same result as Aguillon and his co-authors. So when there is too much competition, firms tend to slow down their R&D investment. So this is our main results. Now, as I said, we compared, well, we estimated the same relationship by considering the yearlies. And here we see that the relationship is steeper. So it means that the yearlies, the young companies, they are more reactive, sensitive to the level of competition than all the other firms when we consider all the other firms, including the oldest R&D top players. And so all these results have some implications in terms of policy. Because if you are the regulator of competition in your economy, what is better to do? You have put rules, regulatory framework that makes the economy more competitive or less competitive. And it's difficult because, as we know, in each member states you have a ministry or regulation for competition, but we are also another layer at the European level with DG competition. And so we have to follow the rules that are imposed by the EU, each country. So there are two layers, the national and the European. Here we compare the EU and the non-EU, and you see here the relationship is different. It's U-shaped. It means that when there is a low level of competition, the companies in the EU, they don't do R&D. It's like if they would benefit from their market position, they don't need to do R&D because there is low competition. They stay like that. And so they don't innovate. And if the level of competition increases, then they start to increase their R&D.
Just an explanatory question. So let's say the leftmost graph features this, let's say.
The ULIS.
Just the ULIS, because it says ULIS versus ULIS.
Yeah, it's not well indicated. Okay. It's not only the subsample of ULIS, and the second one is the subsample of European companies in the EU. And the last one is small versus large companies. Well, yeah, the small companies, they don't do R&D when the competition is low. So it means, well, it's a little bit extrapolated, but it means that it is good to have a more competitive environment because this will well, small in brackets, because we talk about big companies in terms of R&D. And the last one is is where high tech and low and medium tech industries. It's defined by the, well, no, sorry, it's all manufacturing in blue and high tech and medium tech in red. And yes, we see that the firms in the high tech sectors, competitions matters much more than when we look at all the companies in the economy. Oh, sorry, there is still another result. I know. Yeah, it's the it's incumbents, the companies that are already in the market, and ENT, it's the entrants. Again, for the new companies that enter new markets, again, competition matters much more in terms of their decision to invest in R&D and the amount they invest in R&D. Okay, I think these are the results, please.
I want to play a bit the devil's lawyer here. Sorry, I want to play the devil's lawyer.
Yeah, thank you.
Because in your mind, you have included the square term of competition. So by construction, you get this curvilinear relationship. So I wonder if you have checked what is the added value to the explanation of the whole variability of your innovation when you remove or add that square item. So is that square item significantly adding explanatory power to your model? Because otherwise it's built by construction that you get in this way.
Yeah. But it's biased, but at the same time, we find different kind of non-monotonic relationship. It's not always like this, or can be also like this. Also, if the coefficients associated with the square term is not significant, then it's linear. But we have a significant coefficients. But your question is what in terms of explaining the variance, or what is the share of this square term? This I cannot respond, I must say. But it's a good point. Thank you. Because then, yeah, maybe it's create a bias by construction. Should be checked.
And while we're discussing the econometric part of it, we noticed that none of the models includes fixed effects. This
it's panel fixed effect, random effect.
Yeah.
We tried everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exposition, they weren't stated, let's say.
Did you try for shocks, kind of?
We split the we did a lot of checks. I cannot show you everything. Also, the way this comes back to your question, the way we modelize the kind of relationship we want to estimate, which different other approaches. Because there is a literature explaining, well, there are different ways to, and we have a lot of checks. But I cannot. Yeah, sorry, please.
Anything on the impact of productivity?
Yeah, we have done the same exercise to investigate the impact of competition on productivity, total factor productivity growth. But the results are in the paper.
Okay.
But I will send you.
No, it's okay.
But but I can tell you that the results are almost the same. That's what we have seen here with R&D. It's also non-monotonic. I don't know how much time do I have left?
20 minutes.
20 minutes, thank you. No, I wanted, I think this is interesting also, well, it's not really related to the relationship between competition and R&D, but to some extent, yes, because it's the R&D or RDI state aids, the subsidies, the grants, the tax incentives, the R&D tax credits. And you know, when it's like that, there are some rules to give this public money to the companies for their R&D, to incentivize the companies to do more R&D because of these market failures and other problems. Firms do not invest enough in R&D to compensate. The government gives money, public money to the company for the R&D activities. But there are rules. And the problem is that when you give money to a company, the company has an advantage compared to the company that do not receive the money or that receive less money. And so this can distort competition. Some firms have more money and they have advantages. And so this is against the rules of DG competition, because for them, what matters, there must be competition between the firms. And all firms have to be on the same foot. Okay, well, this is at the level of the European Commission, as the rules to give the R&D money, the public money to the companies. Then you have another, as I said, beginning another layer, you have also the national rules. Okay. So what we have done, this was in 2016, DG RTD commissioned a big study. It was 2 million. It lasted 2 years. The report was 2,000 pages. And what we have, I was one of the contributors. I was in charge of the economic part of the study, because we worked with, do you say this, lawyers. Bird, it's a company of lawyers, and they did the legal part. Yeah. And we and my team were many, as you can expect, it's a big study. We did the economic part of the analysis, and then we also had CEOs of companies, of these big companies, and they were interviewed. We had an online survey, different ways to analyze this. The lawyers, what they did the legal analysis. So what we did, we collected all the legal documents where you can find the rule of all these instruments to give the R&D money to the companies. So as I said, there were in the EU more than 2,000 documents. Some documents are wrong. And so the lawyers, they analyze this very carefully. For 2,000 documents in the EU, in the 28 member states. But as I said before, we also compared the same with non-European countries, like I said before, Brazil, US, Canada, Russia, Japan, China. In China, the documents were written in Chinese or in Russian. So we had to translate, ask, what do we call this? Translators? Yes. Translate. Well, Indian, it's easy because it's available in South Korea. And so we did all this analysis, and in 3 words, you know what? The rules in the EU are much more complicated than in all these other non-EU countries. They are much more complicated because there are too many rules, exceptions, and you have to do this and this. If not, you cannot receive the money. And since they are so complicated, it takes a long time between the moment of the company applied funding and the time the company received the money. And I remember we had a discussion with the CEO, Technological Chief Officer of Airbus, an European company. And he said, how can we compete with our rival Boeing? Boeing, when they have a new prototype, a new airplane, they ask the money for the R&D for the new prototype. After 6 months, they receive the money from the US government. In Europe, it takes 3 years. And so he said that we cannot compete. Well, because when we will receive the money, our competitors, they will already have the product. We want to also develop.
Now the Boeing has problems with the quality.
And now Boeing has these problems.
They're going too fast.
Maybe they were too fast, that's true. Now, but it's an example to explain them. But on average, it takes much more time in the EU to receive this public money for your R&D. So I'm not going to go into the details. You have the slides. But this is the main message. Yeah, the key findings, the rules for R&D state aid are too restrictive and too complex in the EU. And this hinder effective RDI support. And so then our companies, they receive less money, it's more difficult for them. And so at the end, there is less R&D. And we see, as we have seen, the impact on competitiveness, on the performance, on growth, on job creation, on welfare, on everything. So that's the problem here. Yeah, you see there is also this transparency issue that the company, when she applies to receive subsidies for its R&D project, she has to explain very much into the details of project, R&D project. And this is a problem because then this information can leak out. If someone get access to this information, then the company is no anymore secrecy. So, and then the DG competition, the inappropriately presume that because the company receives the subsidies, it will distort competition. But then we told the persons that look, if you do fundamental research, this is much more before the financial competition on the final market. So how can you presume that if you give subsidies to a more fundamental R&D project, it will lead to a distortion of competition? This is in the EU. They think these things, but in the other countries, you don't have this presumption.
Excuse me, is there empirical evidence that
we did case study. Sorry, go ahead.
My point is a little bit that this issue of declining competition is an empirical fact that has been found not only for the EU, but also for the US. And that's one of the factors that have been one of the reasons why probably productivity growth is slowing down. Well, this is usually cited as a factor, contributing factor. So it's a general phenomenon.
Yeah, no.
And then another question that I would have is that do you have evidence on? So I would be curious to see to know a little bit more about evidence and this over-regulatory burden. I would also like to know: are you aware of any study that looks at the lobby system in the EU and the impact of on competition.
But the first point is that here it's a comparative analysis of the 28 member states in the EU and these 9 non-EU countries. And the main conclusion is that the rules are much more complicated in the EU. And how do you come to this conclusion? It's when you analyze the document from a legal basis. Okay, if you want to receive this amount of money, you have to stick to all these criteria. And there are many more criteria on average in the EU rules, instruments, if you compare with the non-EU countries. And so this disadvantage the European companies.
And can you show this empirically?
Yeah, we did it. We did through different lenses. First, there was the legal analysis, the lawyers. They analyze all the documents from a legal basis. Then there was a descriptive statistics. I was in charge of that. There has been several econometric analyses. All this is available. It's publicly available. It's the report. It's 2,000 pages. Then we had the interviews with the CEOs, the technical chief officers. Interviews with R&D companies in Europe, but also outside Europe. What do you think about this public support? We compare all this. And then what we did else? And all these different angles of analysis converge to the same conclusion that in Europe. Alors, you don't know what's the end of this. So the studies was done after 3 years. It was commissioned by DG RTD. And you know what? DG competition, they put their veto to forbid the publication of the study. Because they were not happy with the conclusion of the study. And this lasted 2 years. So the report has not been published for 2 years after it was ready. And after 2 years, there was, these lawyers, they invoked an argument. The study has been paid, financed by money, the European citizen. So it has to be public. And then there were 2 ministers, but I don't remember if it was the Minister of Economy or Research, one in France and one in Germany. And they said the way of thinking to DG competition, and then the study could be published. And then DG competition changed slightly some of the rules, but very slightly. And you know why is it so? Because there is, in my view, but not only in my view, 2 different schools of thought. On the one hand, DG RTD, they say, okay, we have to innovate, do more R&D. It is important for our economy, for the EU. And you have DG competition. Okay, they agree, yes, it is important to innovate, to R&D. But for them, what is more important is competition. And you know why they think so? Because the EU, the Commission and all these institutions were created when? After World War II. The 50s and the 60s. And at that time, our economies were not global as they are now. Now it's a worldwide competition. In the 60s, it was not like that. And so they put in place all this regulatory framework at that time, but they have not evolved. Well, it's my view. don't know, what do you think?
That's the European Commission and the DG competition, they have now a chief economist.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
quite recent, but because of this legal thinking which was hampering decision-making.
Notice, however, that this does not explain the empirical result you showed us earlier.
No, this is a little bit different, but I wanted to share this issue because it's related to competition and R&D, because it's a public support to R&D.
Do you find this study?
It's not, pardon?
Do you find this study now on the website?
Yeah, I will send you.
I'm not aware of it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, I remember that in former times it was this conferences, Wood Valley's one somewhere, where you made a presentation of a paper where you showed the intensity of R&D depending on competition. Is my memory still? And it was with data from our CIS survey, because in that survey, we had a question, I designed the question, so remember, where we have a perception of competition, you know, not the happenings, but how they feel this perception. And I remember that you found this the same curve, and it was published also somewhere.
Study that was done
Long time ago.
it was 10 years ago, one of the few.
You see my memory.
I came when I came here was
Exactly.
the relation between competition and innovation.
Exactly.
And in Luxembourg, I was using Boom on SPS data. Yeah, that's published. Yeah, I think I found similar result.
Exactly. So she found it, you found it, so it must be true.
Because we get more, yeah.
Have you considered the role of any moderating factors? And specifically, I'm thinking about trust. Arrow used to say that at least is known for many things, but one thing he said is that at least a part of the economic backwardness worldwide can be explained by lack of trust. And he was really referring to trust as a tool that facilitates economic relations and that frees resources that can be used for economic activity. And I'm wondering, competition and creation of trust can clash, at least above certain thresholds. And I wonder if there could be a moderating factor there.
Yeah, no, that's right. I will come back to your question and your points. Just I will send you the link, but if you want to get access to the full report, if you Google ENIRI, it's the acronym of European and National Instrument, or I don't remember, for Research and Innovation. You will find it. But I will anyway send you the link. Maybe to your point, I have a slide here. It comes from Agion. It's to explain this idea that when firms are close to the technological frontier, as Agion said himself, they are competing neck and neck. Okay. They continue the competition because they know there are chances that they will succeed, even if they are competing. Because they know they are good, they have the knowledge, they are close to the technological frontier. While the other categories of firms are what Agion called himself the laggards, the firms that are far away. There, it's the opposite. If there is more competition, they know their chances are low, and so they will not continue to invest, or they will invest less in R&D. And with this concept, it's a very interesting book from Aguillon. I don't remember the title, but I will send you. Here in this graph, what do you have? You have the GDP per capita ratio of Argentina compared to the US. So numerator is the GDP ratio, no, the GDP per capita of Argentina. And you can see in the graph until, let's say, when World War II, the ratio of these two ratios was more or less constant. There were some, and after World War II, the ratio of these two ratios, GDP per capita of Argentina divided by GDP per capita of US, it started declining. And this result, well, Sagan explained this result with this theory of neck and neck competition and laggard firm. Because what happened in Argentina before World War II, basically Argentina was an autarky. There were no competition, international competition in R&D, because the economy of Argentina was closed, an autarky. After World War I, everything changed, and competition started to come from the US, the trade. They changed their way of exporting and importing. And since the technologies of the US were quite more advanced compared to the state of knowledge in technology of the Argentinian companies, the Argentinian companies, they became laggards compared to the US firms who were close to the technological frontier. And what happens because of that, the GDP per capita of Argentina started to decrease more in relative terms than the GDP per capita of the US. That's why we have this. I don't know if it is related to your question about trust, because if you are, well, it's more a political issue, but if you are not open in your trades, and it's like the previous government in the US, with Trump, we wanted to lower the international trade, to rely more on US companies. And so to me, it is related to trust, because it means you don't trust the others outside your country. Well, it's a way of interpreting trust. There are other ways, of course.
As well. Maxime, if you want to ask a question?
Yes, sorry.
Hello.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I'm
you.
Maxime, Tech Research. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. So I'm Maxime from Static Research. I work for the entrepreneurship subunit. And actually, I go back to what you said before concerning, and I would like your opinion on that. You mentioned that the R&D effort for your leads are really low in Europe in comparison with the US, right?
Yes.
And at some point, you also mentioned the fact that due to the regulatory constraints, etc., it was way harder for European sorry, cannot find my word, innovators and new firms and EOLs to get access to public fundings. And I wonder what you think about the possible impact also of, let's say, the underrepresentation of alternative forms of funding in Europe. Could that also explain the fact that R&D and innovation activities were pretty risky? And at some point, you have in the US, for example, a lot of alternative way of being funded, for example, venture capital. And I'm under the impression, and I think that the numbers are confirming this, that there is a lack of, for example, these alternative sources of funding in Europe. Do you think that it could explain also the low R&D effort from EOLs?
Yeah, yes, indeed, that's right. We know that the venture capital market is much less developed here in Europe. And why is it? It's because the European investors, on average, they are more risk averse. In the US, it's not like that. It's a different culture. People, they like to take risks. Of course, there are risks, but people take this risk because they know, okay, it's risky, but if it succeeds, I will make a lot of money out of my investment. And so they are more ready to take this kind of risk because they know that on average, they diversify their portfolio of the money where they invest in the R&D project. They will make money in Europe. It's not like that. And you have the private, the blue angels, the private investors, capitalists, but you have also the public banks or institutions like here the BEI, the European Investment Bank. They invest in money, they give money for investment in projects that are not risky.
Okay.
And then you don't lose your money normally.
So basically, the EIB
have problem.
Sorry. So basically, what you say here is that the EIB has a conservative risk profile at the end of the day.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So basically, you will say that it makes sense to say at the end of the day that this lack of alternative mode of fundings and different risk profiles in Europe, these are cultural, and that could explain the low R&D effort of EOLs.
Perhaps it's much more easier. So to have a look at the Lerner report of former Prime Minister of Italy.
Okay.
He produced a report on the internal market. And one of his messages is that we don't have a capital market in Europe.
We don't.
And so because Italian banks lend to Italian companies and the French banks to the French, so we don't have this market. We know it for quite a long time, but apparently everybody wants to stick to his this segmentation of the market. So it's very different from the US. There is more federal layer. So,
but I think this one, well, there are many problems, but in the EU, it's a collection of 27 different national markets. And so it's very fragmented.
Yeah.
While China, US, it's a big, unique market. And so normally this is the objective of the EU and the EU institutions to make an unified Europe, but it doesn't work for different reasons. I know, unfortunately, things are
getting worse.
When you see in France and now in Germany, the elections, in Italy also, well, everywhere, in Belgium, in Flanders. So,
thanks a lot.
Thank you for your.
Thank you too. So the idea was that we had a talk just to see what you're doing, the kind of research you have done in former times, what you're doing now. And the idea was, have we some common ground, things that you could do together?
Yeah, okay.
You set examples, students,
Mémoire,
one. Others could be joint projects,
PhD also, like
PhD.
postdoc.
Yeah,
PhD.
so this could be quite interesting avenue. Common research project, who knows? Kind of.
And project on the Luxembourgish economy.
Yes. Or comparative, because it's very different.
With other countries.
We love comparative things, even if, okay, we have a lot of data in Luxembourg,
Yes.
but it's important to have a comparative view too.
Yeah, sure. And delivery.
So we don't have time to make a long presentation of what we are doing, isn't it? So perhaps, but since you come back and forth, so
yeah, but on your website, I have seen, and also your.
yes, but then you have to read all this.
Yeah.
It's easier if we give an overview of kind of things that we have done. So
And
it will be more interactive.
yeah. And also, if you have ideas of studies or topics that, because then it's in general, it's at the beginning of the academic year in September. I can advertise your topics on our platform, and then I'm sure there will be students interested. Yes.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you.